So good morning, everyone. As I just stated, we're going to start this morning with our Access to Care and Policies and Regulations course. If you'll please read the purpose of the course. And this is our course agenda for this month. So what are Access to Care goals? What is Access to Care and what is the goal of Access to Care? So the goal is to implement and sustain a systematic, proactive, responsive plan that encompasses all the necessary activities to ensure that our beneficiaries get care within their clinic within Access to Care standards. And there are several different activities that are involved in this. So templating, scheduling, appointment booking, which you all are involved. Good morning. Enrollment, empanelment, demand management, which Jeff touched on a little bit yesterday, and analysis, and referral management. So what are Access to Care goals? One of them is to make getting an appointment convenient and customer friendly. And we've talked about that throughout, and we'll continue to talk about that, because first our patients, how they gain access to us is through appointments. Provide access to services within the access standards, and we'll go over what the access standards are. We have to open schedules on time with sufficient supply. So we talked about that a little bit yesterday, supply and demand. So we have to make sure we have enough supply available to meet patient demand in order to have enough access for our patients. Resolve patient issues with limited visit interactions. So we don't want to tell our patients for every single little problem they have to have another appointment, right? Because that eats up our access and impacts it. Strive for the highest in patient satisfaction. And there's a term called first call resolution. I don't know if any of you have heard of it before. But basically what it means is to resolve the request for services during the patient's first contact or services. So we are not allowed to tell patients if they call us requesting an appointment to say, sorry, call back later and see if you can get an appointment. We offer them what we can. So if a patient calls and they want an appointment, we say, these are the appointments we have available to you. If the patient chooses not to take one of those, that's their prerogative. But we don't say, sorry, we can't get you an appointment on Tuesday, call back tomorrow morning and see if something has canceled. What we could do is say, you want an appointment for Tuesday. I'm sorry, we don't have an appointment for Tuesday right now, but we have these other appointment times available to you. You can take one of those if you choose. If a patient happens to cancel within the time frame, I can take your name and number and give you a call back. So Access to Care success takes a team. So all of these folks are involved in making access work for our patients and having a successful Access to Care plan for our patients. So now we're going to switch gears. What does this access look like? What are the different types of appointments that we offer here at our facility, and what are they used for? 24-hour appointment is for urgent acute care needs that are non-emergent. So it's not something where it's life, limb, or eyesight. That would be an emergency. They would need to go to the emergency room. It's something like, let's say, they have a sore throat, something they should be seen for probably in 24 hours and not wait 5 days to be seen for. A future appointment is the type of appointment we would book if a patient was having a follow-up appointment, if they needed a wellness care appointment. So for example, if a soldier calls to request a PHA, a health assessment, or if the patient requests an appointment beyond 24 hours. I want to come in and see the doctor. Today is Thursday. Do you have anything available on Monday? Specialty appointments, also known as spec appointments, are for the patient's first initial specialty care clinic appointment. Procedure appointments, which are PROC appointments, commonly called that, and you see them in the system as that, are for when a provider is going to perform a procedure during that clinic visit. And those are specifically outlined by clinic in booking protocols of what is put in a PROC appointment. Group appointments are appointments that are built with multiple slots for a patient to be booked against. So, for example, you would have an 8 o'clock appointment, and you could have 20 slots for that 8 o'clock appointment for all patients to see one provider at 8 o'clock. We commonly use these at our facility for our travel medicine appointments over at Cadet Health. When we're doing large number of travel medicine appointments for cadets. And also we'll see these sometimes in nutrition care, where the nutrition care provider will bring patients in and do counseling education on a particular nutrition care issue. They are also used for, there's industry evidence that having the patients to come together as a group improves patient outcomes and patient satisfaction. Specialty appointment with a house call detail code, also known as SPEC HC, is very new at our facility. We just started using them last week. We're only using them right now in primary care. And what this is it's a new type of appointment that we're using under DHA. It's a telephone appointment, but it's not a TCON, something different. It's an appointment time that is given to the patient. The patient is actually booked an appointment in the system. So if a patient has one of these appointments, for example, at 8 o'clock, they will know at 8 o'clock the doctor will call you for your appointment, which is different than a TCON, correct? Because the TCON, you would be told, well, the provider will call you sometime today. But as a patient, you don't know when that's going to happen. This is actual type of appointment that has very specific criteria for a patient to have this appointment type. So there's certain medical reasons that can only be booked into these, and we've actually established an SOP that outlines what those reasons are for primary care. And there has to be some kind of medical decision-making or treatment, care plan decision-making or possible change that's going to occur during that appointment. Audio care. So audio care is our appointment and referral reminder system. So our patients have the ability to receive reminder messages about their appointments as well as reminders about the referrals that they have in the system. We have had at our facility the audio portion of the audio care contract for a number of years. As of yesterday, we just turned on the text message feature. So we purchased the text message feature from the contractor and it was activated yesterday. So it's very exciting. So now patients have the option to either get audio reminder messages or text reminder messages. The system doesn't allow for both. They have to choose one or the other. In order to do this, if they already had a mobile number in CHCS, a mobile number field, a cell phone number that was accurate, they would have received a text that would say, we are now offering this feature, like press 1, for example, to opt in. And it would switch their settings over. However, for our patients that didn't happen to have a number listed in that mobile field, they wouldn't have gotten that text message yesterday, right? So what can they do? Or if you're talking to a patient and they would hear from their neighbor that we are offering this feature and they see an article in the paper, for example, and they ask you, how can we get the text message reminders? What they can do is they can call this number, and the system, I did it myself yesterday, the system, they have to select a few options, 6, then 3, then 1. And when they get in there, it will ask them for their DOD ID number from their ID card to identify that they have the correct patient or making changes for the correct patient. You can go in and opt to get audio messages or opt to have the text messages sent to you. And it will also let you input the cell phone number that you want those text messages to go to. So if a patient decides they want to switch to text messaging today, but 2 days from now is like, I'm not really into the text messaging, I want to go back to the audio, they can make these changes in here. If a patient decides that they're going to change their cell phone number, they could go in here and update that information. But likewise, when you're at the front desk, you can let patients know, we have this text feature that's available. You can provide them this information. We're going to put out some flyers for you guys to have at the front desk to help you with the education of the patients on this. But also right now, we have patients in that home phone field who have their cell phones listed because they wanted those voice messages to go to their cell phone and not actually their home phone number. So if they want those messages to now go to their cell phone in a text format, they would need their cell phone in that mobile phone field in CHCS. Any questions about that? It's very new. We're doing a lot of new exciting things.
The phone number, that's the appointment center, and that's where
Yes,
it goes
that's
to.
correct. Yep. All right, so that's audio care. So appointment templates. So I put on here the terms appointment templates and appointment schedule because sometimes I hear people use them interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. So an appointment template is a predefined schedule outlined for a day of the week or for an entire week, and it's used to build schedules from. So the way that looks is the clinic establishes what a Monday, Wednesday, every day of the week, whatever it is for the provider, and what that template is going to look for the provider, their standardized template. So every Monday, they're going to have X number of appointments in the morning. Their 8 o'clock appointment's going to be, say, a spec appointment. Their 8:30 appointment is going to be a future appointment. It's set up in a standardized template. Good morning. Come on. And it's done for each day of the week. Templates here, if somebody is new to your clinic or if there needs to be a change to templates, those are worked on with the clinic leadership and the provider. They also involve me. I provide input to that. Once we decide that it's a good product that's going to work well for the clinic and meets DHA policy guidelines, which we'll talk about in a little bit, the clinic chief has to approve it, as well as the department chief if there's a different person in that chain. And then it comes to me for final review, and then it goes to the DCCS for final approval. That's how the approval system works. An appointment schedule is turned in and outlines what the actual provider's schedule is going to look like. So it's for a specific time period, so say a month, and in the schedule it would tell what is supposed to be open based on the template, less any leave or maybe there's training plan during that time. So for example, on a Monday, on a typical Monday, maybe the provider sees 20 patients, and that's what's built in their template. But for next Monday, on their schedule, they're going to be in leave in the afternoon. So when their schedule is opened in CHCS, from the template, we know it's the normal morning clinic that's built in CHCS, but we're not going to open the afternoon. Any questions on that? So how can a patient make an appointment? We've talked about several ways. They can call the appointment center line. They can book it through TRICARE Online, which we talked about yesterday. They can book an initial specialty care appointment at the satellite appointment and referral office. Who knows what that is and where that is? All right. So So it's new also. So we've set up an office, for those of you who don't know, outside of primary care to meet DHA policy. According to DHA policy, we're supposed to offer patients an opportunity to book their initial specialty care appointment before they leave the facility. So it's located outside primary care by the bathrooms. If a patient goes to see their doctor in primary care and during the course of that visit, the provider says, we need to send you to general surgery. And they put a referral into general surgery. Then they direct the patients to stop by the satellite office on the way out of the facility. And what happens there is there's a referral clerk in the office and an appointment clerk. The referral clerk reviews the referral and determines based on a capabilities list from the clinic. This is something that can be done in general surgery at Keller, and they'll appoint it here. Or they'll determine this is not something that we have the capability to do at Keller. It needs to be deferred to a network provider. And they can inform the patient at that time what's going to happen with the referral. Most times, unless they have to reach out to the clinic for additional guidance. And sometimes they do that. That's who they refer to if there's a question in regards to a particular referral. If it's appointed to Keller, not to a network provider, but to Keller in-house, then the appointment clerk can go ahead and book for them that initial specialty care clinic appointment before they leave. If the patient decides that they don't have time to stop by the satellite office before they, maybe they've got to get back to work or they've got, to get their child from daycare, the next day, my referral office prints off a report of any patient who has a referral in the system who has not had an appointment booked. It's sent to my appointment center, and one of my appointment center clerks calls those patients and offers to make them an appointment. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to get a hold of them, right? They might get an answering machine, something like that. But 3 attempts are made to contact the patient within 14 days if they haven't made their appointment. And that's all outlined in DHA policy. Any questions on the satellite office? So the satellite office is there to book patients' initial specialty care appointments. That's the function of the office. And I say that because it's not an in-house appointment center. So it's not staffed. I don't have enough staff in that office to book every appointment that has to be booked for the facility. It's there for a specific purpose based off the DHA. For follow-up appointments, those can be booked at the clinic front desk. That also is based off the DHA policy, and I'll show you when we get to the policy part exactly what it says in DHA policy about that. So access to care standards. For 24-hour appointments, the standard is to have them available within 24 hours. Future appointments within 7 days. Specialty appointments, 28 days. Procedure appointments within 28 days. And group appointments do not have a particular standard. Any questions on the access to care standards? All right, so there are several metrics that are looked at in regards to access to care and appointments in general and what's happening with them at the facility. And so we'll just go through a few of those just for your awareness. For no-shows, the standard is we're supposed to have 5% or less no-show appointments for our facility. Cancellation and also freezing, we're supposed to have 3% or less. Left without being seen, we're supposed to have 0. That's the goal. If you do have a patient that is left without being seen, meaning they come, they check in, and they leave before their appointment is complete, you're supposed to contact that patient and check on them and make sure they're okay. Or someone in the clinic is supposed to call them. PCM continuity, the goal is 65% of the time that we're booking patients with their PCM. TRICARE Online, that 90% of primary care appointments are available to be booked on TRICARE Online. And the goal is that at least 5% of appointments are booked on TRICARE Online. I'll tell you that our cadet population loves TRICARE Online. We usually do really well with this standard because they are such heavy users of TRICARE Online. First call resolution, 90%, and unbooked appointments is 5% or less. So the goal is that we book all of our appointments 5% 5% or less is an acceptable standard to have unbilled. TOL, web disabled. So what this means, the other slide talked about we are supposed to have 90% of our primary care appointments available to book online. This is the other 10% that are not available. So we're only allowed to have 10% that are not available. Detail code exclusions, so we're not supposed to have detail codes like on all our appointments. And we've really cleaned that up. So it's not to exceed 5% of total available primary and specialty care appointments. Average days to third next available 24-hour appointment. This metric is looked at very heavily. The standard here is less than 1 day. And average days to third next available future is less than 7 days. Any questions on any of those? Yes, ma'am.
Can you just explain what the third next available is? I don't understand that term.
So probably the best way to explain it is I can bring a handout after lunch that explains it really well. I will attempt to now, but I've got a methodology document that does a really good job. So third next available counts in this fashion. We have to have available to a patient 3 appointments that they can book that meet the access to care standard. So if a patient calls and they want a 24-hour appointment, we should have 3 available that we can offer to them. However, there's a lot of caveats to that. So it's not 3 9 o'clock appointments, right? So that doesn't count to meet the metric. It has to be 3 appointments at 3 different times. So 2 of those appointments could be, say, an 8 o'clock and a 10 o'clock with the same provider. Or it could be an 8 o'clock with one provider, a 9 o'clock with another provider, and a 10 o'clock with yet another provider. So that's what meets the metric. And Mary's shaking her head, so hopefully I'm explaining it clearly. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. So that's how that works. And in the same fashion with the 7 days. You have to have it available in that way. So now we're going to move to policies and regulations. Any questions on the materials I've covered so far? Is any of this new information to you? All right, so policies and regulations. We have lots of policies and regulations. I'm not going to cover all of them. We've just picked out a few that we thought would be helpful to you to be aware of within your clinics. So these are the 4 that I'm going to touch on. So the first one is DHA IPM 18001. Hopefully all of you or most of you have heard of this DHA policy. It's been a policy that's been out for quite a while. We've been working on implementing things from the policy at our facility for quite some time now. And you've heard me speak about some of those things we've been implementing. The Spec HC appointments, the ability to book patients their initial specialty care appointment before they leave the facility, etc. This document is about 40 pages long, so I'm not going to cover everything in the document for you. I just pulled out a few things I want to highlight for you. However, as I mentioned before, in your reference materials on the public folder, in that MSA references that I talked about yesterday, I have put all 4 of these policies, copies of them, in that folder for you to easily be able to reference and read the whole thing. I would encourage you to. They are coming out with a new version of this policy. I don't know, Jeff, have you heard when they were expected to?
Should be sometime in February.
Okay. So they're working on yet another version of this policy, which means there'll be even more little tweaks and changes. So we're looking forward to seeing what those are exactly. So things that are in the policy and you'll start to see happening is no MTF can close in excess of 3 days or any day beyond federal declared holidays. So you start to see those things. So how we were before accustomed to the military getting training holidays and facilities closing for 4-day weekends, not under DHA, right? DHA says that we have to have the hospital open only time that we can close it, we can't close it beyond 3 days, is what I'm trying to say. Federal holiday and a weekend can be combined, but not all 4 days. So DHA is publishing policy on what the new holiday calendar is going to look like. I know a lot of clients have been asking, where's the guidance? Where's the guidance? The command's trying to get the official guidance because there are changes that are coming. So what does this mean? This doesn't mean that where our facility is closed for 3 days and a 4th day, and because we have an ER, it meets the standard. It's very specific. We have to have appointments. There's a metric that looks at this, and they look at the number of appointments we have available. And they can see, because they can see everything that we do in our data. The next one is all clinics have schedules opened 180 days in the future or until the provider's projected rotation date. We're already doing this. We've already implemented this in all of our clinics. All of our clinic services have the schedule out 180 days. But it was a change. Before we only had that in primary care. Frozen appointments will either be canceled or released 48 hours in advance for booking.
What does that mean, frozen?
So frozen is you can basically put it on kind of a hold status,
Okay.
so nothing can be done with it. So that's what a frozen appointment is. Sometimes I'll have people that will contact me at the facility and they'll say, hey, can you, this provider has to go do this afternoon. Can you freeze their 2 o'clock to 1600 appointments? Or rather they'll say, can you block their 2 o'clock to 1400 to 1600 appointments? Block is not actually a official term. What they're asking is if I will freeze their appointments, and then I write them back and say, hi, do you have approval to do this? And we'll talk about how approval happens for those types of things. And we will not be blocking or freezing these appointments. They have to be facility canceled. So I'm just trying to teach people what the terminology is and what will actually occur in the system. No one visit, one follow-on policy. So that's what we talked a little bit about earlier. So we don't want patients to have to keep coming back again and again and again for appointments. But there's some nuances with this, right? So, and providers have a bit of flexibility. So if you have a patient that comes in and the reason that they're coming in is, say they have knee pain. And, they've had their appointment booked for 5 days. And so 3 days out, they started getting a sore throat. But they have an appointment for knee pain, and they know they're going to get to see the doctor for the knee pain, but they've got this sore throat thing going on. Well, when they're in with the doctor, and they say, hey doc, yeah, my knee's killing me, but also my throat's killing me. Can you help me out? Can you look at this? The provider can't say, you need to come back for your sore throat. You need to go and make another appointment. The expectation is that the provider will address both problems during that visit. Now, if you have a patient that comes in, and say they come in because they have an appointment for knee pain, but they come in and see the doctor and they say, doc, I got this knee pain going on, but this morning I got up and I started with this chest pain that's radiating down my arm. Well, the doctor's got to triage that, right? He's got to look at what's going on with the patient. And at that point, the doctor very well may say, hey, this chest pain radiating down your arm is more important for us to address. We're going to spend your appointment time addressing that. We're going to do EKG. We're going to make sure that this potentially life-threatening issue is addressed. And I'm going to have you come back about the knee for another visit. That's appropriate. If the doc has a patient that booked an appointment for their knee and they get in with the doctor and they got 10 other things going on, right? And in the time frame that the doctor has, he can address 5 of the 10 things. He'll prioritize them, right? He'll address the 5, and then unfortunately he might have to ask the patient to come back in that case, because otherwise he'll have patients stacked up in the waiting room and putting them behind. So it is one visit, one problem, but understanding there are exceptions and things that occur. All right, so this is the part where I mentioned about follow-up appointments, and I will actually read this verbatim. So if, this is directly from the regulation, if a follow-up appointment is clinically indicated, the clinic will offer to schedule the patient a follow-up future appointment prior to the patient leaving the MTF during appointment checkout. MTS will not direct patients who want to schedule a follow-up appointment before departing the MTF to call the appointment center. You have a patient, as they leave, the doc said, hey, I need to send you back, and that patient wants to book that appointment before they leave. By regulation, you have to book them the appointment at the clinic. Now, if they want to go home and check their calendar, then you can say, that's fine. The appointment center can assist you. You can call them when it's convenient to you. Any questions on any of those? One of the other things in here is in reference to changing appointment types. So we have the ability as booking clerks to change appointment types to meet patients' needs and to help them gain access to the system. So here's an example. If a patient calls and only spec appointments are left available on Thursday, but they need a future appointment, you're allowed to change that spec HC appointment type to a future and book the patient into it, and vice versa. Missed, late, or wrong day appointments, by regulation, we have to offer to work the patient in with the same or a different provider before the end of the day. Now, you have to explain to the patient, we'll do our best to work you in, but it may not be until the end of the day that we're able to get you in, which could be 5 hours from now. So the patient has a choice, right? If the patient chooses to reschedule and not wait, the patient will be marked as a no-show, which is appropriate. So any questions on any of that elements from that policy I pulled out? Like I said, I encourage you to look at it. There's a lot more information that's involved in there. All right, so we're going to touch on end-of-day processing. You're going to get end-of-day processing touched on here and there and different information about it in a couple different courses today because it is very important. So it is covered in policy 54, and it outlines who's responsible for end-of-day processing and making sure that it happens. So the clinic OICs, NCOICs, or supervisors all have the responsibility to make sure it's taking place every day in the clinic. And making sure that any appointments that have the status of pending are resolved by the end of day by end of day processing. The front desk personnel are the ones that are responsible, usually the ones that actually do it in the system at the end of each day. The ones that are booking appointments, checking the patients in are usually the ones that do that. If that person is out though, who is ultimately responsible to make sure it gets done? Clinic leadership, right? So when must it occur? At the end of each day, when all the scheduled and unscheduled patients have completed their appointments. For 24-hour clinics like the ER, they have an established time that they do it once a day, which for us looks like it's 07 in the morning. So each pending appointment that's out there must be closed as either kept, no-show, left without being seen, admin, patient, or facility canceled. So why is it important? So this reconciles all the appointments with the actual workload of the provider in the clinic and provides a definite measure of the actual workload. It has to do with data quality, so that's why I said you'll hear that again. in regards to that. And later today, we'll talk about what steps you actually do in CHCS to complete this task. Additionally, the process generates an ambulatory data module screen so the encounter can be coded. So that's how important this is. If this is not done correctly and done consistently, those encounters can't be coded by the coders. So any question on policy 54, the part we touched on? All right. So policy 24 is our appointment schedule change policy. So the goal, of course, with access to care, this impacts that, is to minimize any changes to open schedules. To minimize facility cancellations, as you see, we have metrics and standards we're supposed to meet on that. And we're supposed to minimize the rescheduling of the patients because it's disruptive to not only the patients, but what's going on in the clinic staff, and the flow of things. So to avoid having these things happen as much as possible, we have to plan ahead. So when the folks in the clinics submit the schedules, they have to make sure that they're thinking about all the things that are coming up and having those reflected in the schedules. So if there's a training coming up that the provider is going to have to go to and it's known when the schedule is submitted, that needs to be reflected on the schedule. So a schedule is not opened up for the provider at that time. Patients booked who then have to be rescheduled and those appointments facility canceled. We know that things come up last minute, but that's why we have a process to address that too. So supervisors are told they have to consider appointment change request carefully and to weigh if there's an ability for the staff member to accomplish whatever it is that's being considered outside of patient care hours. So I can provide an example where we've seen this in our office and had to weigh in. We have sometimes IMA soldiers who come and provide support to the clinic. They do their 2 weeks annual, rotation here for the reserves. Well, they have to get, they have to meet with the commander and first sergeant, as part of their in process and part of their time here. Well, we got a request to facility cancel a provider schedule for a portion of an afternoon because she had a meeting with the first sergeant. Could that soldier have had a meeting with the first sergeant after patient care hours? Absolutely. So we got on the phone with the first sergeant and said, hey, first sergeant, we're having terrible access to care issues in our primary care. We really need this provider in clinic. And oh, they already got patients booked. How about let's look at changing this. Any way you can see this provider at 16:30 after the clinic day? And the first sergeant, being the great guy is, completely understood and was like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. So those are the types of things that come up that have to be considered. So again, any changes that are made to the appointment schedule that remove appointment availability are facility cancellations. So there are times when a provider will not be available to see their scheduled patients, and when this occurs, every effort will be made to have them booked with another provider. Our providers get sick too, they have family emergencies. There are times when those things will occur, but we want to do the best we can to still get our patients seen if we're able to. So if a provider does need to do a schedule change, what happens is they have to do a schedule change request memo. There is a format of what that memo has to look like within the policy, and then they submit that to the department chief. If it's the department chief that's requesting a schedule change request, he doesn't submit it to himself, he would submit it to the deputy, right, the higher person. So in most cases, that would be Colonel Malinowski or DCCS. We do have one or two providers that, for example, a nutrition care provider actually falls under the Deputy Commander for Administration. That's her supervisor. So there are a few variations, but not many. So any questions on that policy and how schedule change requests are supposed to occur? So if you have a provider that comes up to you in your clinic and is like, hey, I want you to facility cancel my patient starting at 3 o'clock. You might ask, did the department chief approve this? But, ask some more questions. Because now a provider can't just come up and say, cancel my patients at 3 o'clock, right? There's an approval process that is required in order for those types of things to occur. All right, policy. Whoops. So the next policy I'm going to touch on is 110. So this is our no-show patient cancellation and facility cancellation of appointments policy. And we've touched on this a little bit already. So a no-show appointment is defined as a patient who has an appointment at the MTF, who neither uses the appointment or cancels it or notifies the MTF that their inability to keep the appointment prior to the appointment. And again, we talked about the metric and what the target rate is for that. So for no-shows, we're also required to provide no-show reports to unit commanders on the installation. So my office, weekly, we produce a no-show report for active duty service members who no-show their appointments. We're by regulation not allowed to do it for other populations. This was something that came up in primary care a week or two ago. We're not allowed to send to unit commanders if somebody's spouse no-showed an appointment. And of course, we wouldn't send to a unit commander for retiree day because they have no association with our retirees. But it's for active duty service members, so those reports go out weekly. And then the commanders hopefully are addressing those with their soldiers. Patient canceled appointment is when a patient calls and cancels their appointment prior to the appointment time. Important thing with this is if you patient cancel an appointment in CHCS, always then go and check in Alta to see if it reflects the patient cancellation. You may have to refresh Alta and then it will show it. You may refresh Alta and it still does not show it. There's not a great flow. It's kind of a glitch in the system in that regard, so then you might have to also patient cancel it in Alta. When an appointment is patient canceled, then it opens back up so that another patient can book into it. So we'd rather a patient cancel an appointment than no-show, because then it opens that appointment up to give the opportunity to another patient to book in. Facility cancellations, when we facility cancel an appointment, it does not open the appointment slot back up for another patient to book in. It closes that appointment slot. It's canceled. So, like it says here, the intent is to permanently remove the appointment slot from the schedule. And all means necessary will be taken to minimize these. Left without being seen, we already touched on. Admin. So when you get to the end of day, you do have an option where you can put admin in for an appointment status. There are only very specific reasons that is allowed, and that has to be approved by the clinic chief to use that. So what happens with those is if the appointment was created for training or testing purposes, it wasn't an actual appointment that was used. If there was a duplicate encounter, maybe somehow the patient got checked in twice in error, or the appointment was just simply created in error. So we don't encourage browsing of appointments because sometimes that creates a duplicate appointment, and sometimes we'll find that those get facility canceled. It wasn't actually a facility canceled patient, it was an administrative error that could be admined out. It would fit that criteria at the end of the day, for example. Then again, staff should only use facility cancellation or admin when authorized from the department chief. Facility cancellations are briefed every morning to the commuter at the daily check-in, the DCI. And the leadership that's briefing those does get asked from time to time, why were there 6 facility cancels in your clinic yesterday? And they have to be able to answer for that.
Okay, so they're kind of tools and processes that ensure correct, complete, valid, and accurate data from basically seeing patients and providing services to our patients. Our bad data equals bad decisions. At the end of the day, DHA and MedCom make decisions based on the data. Has anybody ever heard the statement to the effect of if it's not documented, it didn't happen? That's the same case here at Keller and Army wide. So with all our MTS, if you didn't document it, it never even happened. So our performance and our workload targets are based on our past performance, so that projects our future budgets. So if we're not documenting that, then we're kind of stubbing ourselves in the foot. Sometimes we're doing a whole lot of work and we're not getting a whole lot of return on investment for that work. Inaccuracies such as in our files and tables and or provider taxonomy code errors, they result in denial of payments or lost revenue and provider workload. Coding timeliness and accuracy can result in denial of payments also. So sometimes if things haven't been coded within, say, 60, 90 days, sometimes a year or two, depending on the insurance company and what they want to do, they will actually deny you payment. And there would be no way for you to recover that if you're, pulling insurance money from third-party billers or payers. So responsibility, accountability, and resources are in the wrong places with data quality. So kind of what everybody does even when they do their MSA, that allows us to allocate funds correctly and essentially put the revenue or the expenses in correct places. So for example, in MSA, if you're not coding say to your BMFers and you're performing all your work in your BMFers, then next year when we get funding for that, MedCom or DHA is going to say, oh, we don't need that. You don't need that. So we're not going to fund you for that. And we have to figure out a way how to make that happen. But it all kind of ties into data quality. So data quality, it's a DHA mandated program across all the services. We meet monthly and everyone is involved in the MTF. So, you might have your primary care chiefs or your chief nurses. We have coders that are involved in that process. We have people with quality that attend that meeting. The deputy chief of administration chairs that meeting. And I pretty much liaison that meeting. But everybody is involved from the top down. MSAs even have a piece in that. Although you may not attend the meeting, MSAs have a big piece of that. So our expectations are precision of our data input, timely transmission of our data, correct medical coding, accurate and reliable MSA, and standardized data processing. Our goals essentially are delivering the best healthcare possible, having reliable and accurate data to make decisions, minimize our costs or save on tax dollars, and maximize our return on investment, such as our workload, money, and solvency for the hospital. Uniformity and sharing the best practices between all services is something that's a goal of ours. So recently with the DHA, we have began to unify all the services under data quality, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The Office of the Surgeon General and DHA. Our components, we have of our data quality program, we have a data quality manager, which is me. We have the data quality assurance team, which is everybody else who is mandated to come to the data quality meetings or different projects that we do involving data quality. Our data quality management control review list, which is attached to the data quality statement that the commander signs and then we turn in to DHA. Previously it was PASBA. That's kind of sunset now since we've transitioned over to DHA, so we are now sending that to DHA and that is being provided to the Office of the Surgeon General. So duties of the data quality manager. We lead the data quality assurance team. We advise the commander. We're the first line response to data errors. So sometimes, you know, an example of a data error, we might have an encounter where somebody put this encounter in Alta. It did not write over to CHCS, and therefore it does not get coded in CCE. That's just one example of a data error. But you can pretty quickly see how something like that will potentially affect the outcome of the provider's workload and or return on investment, such as our RVUs and our RWPs, right? Any questions? Okay, so we focus on improving and standardizing processes. The data quality assurance team includes, but it's not limited to, somebody from information management, patient administration, resource management, clinical operations, and representatives from primary care, Department of Surgery, and behavioral health. We're all responsible for completing the review list and assuring resolution of our data quality issues that we report to that committee. Okay? So, our data quality review list in our statement, previously it was a web-based tool on our PASBA website. It is now obsolete. It was decommissioned on August 6th, and we have a new automated system coming, but we're just not there yet, so we're kind of in the middle of a transition period. We begin with something called EDQ. It is something that the Air Force currently uses, and we begin using that at the beginning of December with October's data. So when we look at our data, just to let you all know, we are looking retrospective at our data. We're looking back 2 months. So this month, we are looking back at the August data when we report our data quality statement to the commander. So it's always 2 months retrospective. Our review list. So our review list is a spreadsheet that we've been doing. Like I said, it was previously online with PASBA, and then it'll go back online with on 1 December with our October data. We have been documenting from October 2018 until present, since there is no current automated process. It is updated annually by the tri-service representative. So recently we have been given new implementation guidance, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. 6 sections include our organizational factors, our data input and our data output, security, our system designs, because that's all important when we document everything online, is it not? And our service-specific questions. Okay. Our DQ statement has 42 questions, and which is a subset from the DQMCP review list. The DQMCP is our Data Quality Management Control Program. So ultimately our commander is responsible for reviewing that list and signing that list. So he's reporting this data to DHA and ultimately OTSG. So he is basically signing responsibility for it, and he has to show on that review list if we're, say, red in certain metrics or amber in certain metrics, what our action plan is to improve that. Next. Okay, so our DEQ MCP success factors prior to fiscal year 2019 were previously these. Everything on our data quality review list was previously 97 to 100 to get green, 90 to 96 to be an amber, and anything below 90% was obviously red. That has all gone away. Next. Okay, so with our new implementation guidance, our new metrics are somewhat different. For example, we're noted below. Otherwise than we're noted below. So these particular questions here are not going to be included in the 97 to 100% for green. So these ones have they're different metrics. Everything other than those questions, anything between 97 and 100 is green. Anything that needs improvement between 90 and 96 is amber, and anything that is less than 90 is red. So these particular questions on our data quality statement, as you can see here, they're laid out a little bit differently. They're set up different. So good, you have to make 100% for questions B4, C11, C11B, 12A, and C12B. To get yellow, you need 97 to 99. For red, it's anything that is less than 97%. It's a little higher standard than we've been held to in the past. But it is something that DHA unified, so across the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army, we're all the same now. Any questions on these? So with some of these questions, you might have, say like metric 9D, that might be our missed rounds. And with our missed rounds, that is something, for example, it's a data quality issue. For example here, we might have issues where a fellow is doing documentation and it's being put in the chart, but the attending provider is not signing the documentation at the end. That's just one example. Something that's not assigned by the attending provider cannot be coded. So there's a piece in that with coders. We have a medical records committee that we discuss this and hopefully make improvements on. And we have been recently. Okay, next. Our data sources. So PASPA receives, or was receiving, now it's DHA, they're receiving feeds from MTS daily. So our appointment data, our outpatient and our APV records, our inpatient rounds data, and our inpatient data as well. Our inpatient data is a bi-monthly transmission. Our EZI data, which is our Demer's-I timeliness and completion, our MEPR's timeliness, and CAR, which is our outpatient coding accuracy. Our website, which is obsolete. This is what it looks like now, today. Next. Our website as well. Next. This is what that one looks like today, under the DHA. Our tools are constantly changing. They're improving. Data is now being uploaded to these sites. Next. Our data quality statement was previously on the PASPA website right before we went to our spreadsheet, and now we're going to EDQ. We're not quite there yet, but we're still documenting our spreadsheet. So this is not our process anymore. This is our data quality management control metrics, where everything is going to eventually be uploaded to. So this is our rolling 12 metrics. And essentially this is being utilized to compare us to other facilities and see what we're doing and how they're doing. And if there is something that they're potentially doing right, that's something that we discuss across all MTFs. Specifically, we have done that prior within our region. And so then we would take things that people are doing that have been successful and try to implement that here at Keller Army Community Hospital. With our rolling 12, you could see question 1A is in the data monthly. Include our BMAPers and accounts what percentage of appointments are closed and meeting our end of day processing requirements. So that's every appointment every day with our outpatient. Because our B members clinics are our outpatient clinics, right? Okay. So step one, our note is so when you look at this, you can see obviously right up here we have a 2-month lag. So that's our 2-month retrospective that I was telling you about. We have our select or assigned MTF, or 0086, which is Keller Army Community Hospital. And you can see for this question, we have been in green across the board. So you get to identify within those blocks if we're red, amber, or green, which is the status for the analysis. Step 4, we select our question tabs. So these are the questions on our data quality statement. So, DQMCP, our new EDQ and BD class, it is something we haven't utilized before. So what you're seeing here, I haven't been able to utilize yet, but this is what that process will look like. With our automated process, it's more than just the review list and statement. The reports can be run for analysis, for trending, and briefing leadership. Basically, we kind of get to drill down on where the problems are instead of just trying to diagnose it and think, oh, we think this is the problem, and then it's not the problem. So with this, we get to drill down to it a little further. All reports can be exported to Word, Excel, and PDF. Okay. What causes poor data quality? Okay, so technology. Some people think it's a technology issue. Some people think it is a non-technology issue, but it's both. With our technology, data quality is formulated as an IT problem, right? So sometimes it's an IT problem. Sometimes our data doesn't write over from one program to the other, and it's a processing error. That's a technology problem. But then when you look at our non-technology problems, it's errors in our data processing or transmission. So it might be a lack of our standardized business rules. Maybe somebody does not know what those business rules are. For example, with our business rules, how do you know if a provider is account provider and non-account provider? Sergeant West, do you know? So our skill type 1 and 2 providers are, say, our physician assistants, our nurse practitioners, which is the skill type 2s. Then we have our MDs, who are basically our skill type 1 providers. Those individuals get count workload. Our skill type 2 providers might be like our BSN or our ADN nurses, or our physical, no, I won't say physical therapists. So our nurses are our PAs. PAs are our skill type 2s. So our nurses, for example, our ADNs and our BSNs. Those are our skill type 3s and 4s, and they get non-count workload. Although it sounds bad that they're not getting count workload, all of that workload is essentially going to the clinic. So it's not like we're losing any workload, it's going to the clinic. Okay? So, hands-on. Groups will receive a DQ scenario, review the scenario. Within 5 minutes, locate a question on the DQ report, write questions. And on posters, we won't do posters today because we don't have a poster. It says it clip class, so 3 minutes. Next. So what percentage of our appointments were close to meeting your end of day processing requirement? Every appointment every day. Does anybody recall from the slides where we were at? Let's go back to let's go back to our DQ-MCP metrics, our current method of tracking.
Not this one?
No,
Not this one, it's all green?
That's that one. Martha, can you jump back
we were at
to it?
100%.
Go back a few slides. Okay, right here. So, at West Point, we've been 100, 99, 100, 100, 100, 100. So 100 across the board, except for this particular month. Do we need to put in an action plan?
No.
Maybe not. But there might be other metrics we need to put in action, right? Okay. So if we were at, say, 96%, what do you think we might wanna do?
I don't know if it's called an action plan, but they gotta be something they can get you for that number.
Okay. So with that being said, with our end-of-day processing, we're required to close out our appointments, our outpatient appointments within 3 business days. So with that being said, we might wanna look at processes. Why are we not closing it out in 3 business days? Why isn't it not being put within 3 business days as well, right? Because we eventually, the process, we close it in 3 business days. But every appointment, every day, we're processing it, we're closing it at the end of that business day, right? Because at the end, we have to be able to code that within 3 business days. Okay? So every appointment, every day, what are we not doing every day that we're not closing those appointments? Do we have the MSA leaving before the docs are done seeing patients? Well, that might be a simple and easy fix, right? Is it something such as a lack of education? Somebody doesn't know how to do the end-of-day processing? Maybe we want to do a little bit of education and put something into place, right? Okay. So we're not going to do this one. Okay. So, your role in data quality. So we're going to examine clinic processes, procedures, and align the goals with our data quality. Examples, we're looking at our end-of-day processing. Our MSA with our workload. So we're kind of comparing the two. Consequences or effects, such as they affect our manning, our resources, our budget when we don't do that. So if we have issues with our, say, like end-of-day processing, or something is not working with the MSA, maybe we want to put in, say, like a trouble ticket to assure resolution of some of our errors. So that's something that you can help us in trying to meet our goals and our metrics. Okay, so our billable patients, DD form 2569, other health insurance. So there, we talked a little bit about that yesterday. It's the collection of a third-party insurance form, which is required yearly. When our MSAs collect that, we want to have them input the, get the form filled out, get it signed, and then input the data regarding that 2569 into the mini badge, right? Okay. So timely, accurate, and complete documentation. With our defense, medical, human resources, systems, internet, we want to look at the completion of that. Running reports consistently, such as running our end-of-day reports. Those are early warnings and issue detection things that we can kind of capture some of that. So when you're running your end-of-day processing at the end of the day, you might see that you might have a ton of appointments or maybe just a few appointments. And then we have to go and, change the status on those, whether, it was pending in the past to whether now it's a kept appointment or a walk-in or whether it was canceled. Maybe the patient was a no-show. But we want to make sure that we're accurately putting that information in. So if they're a no-show, they're a no-show. If we cancel them because the doc wasn't here, maybe we're going to facility cancel it, right? At the end of the day, everything has to have a status. So our appointments and our compliance. With our appointments and compliance, we are booking patients into correct appointment types, which is the first key to reporting clean encounter data. So whether or not we're booking them into, say, a future appointment, whether or not we're booking them into a specialty appointment, that's kind of where some of it starts, right? Appointment types drive what type of codes the coders utilize, which are defaulted for their visits. E&M and CPT codes, they drive our RVUs, which are assigned to that visit. So if we're not putting them or booking them into correct clinics or correct appointment types, that will skew our, our coding for that. And eventually, at the end of the day, our return on investment or our RVU, so it'll affect our budget, right? Okay, so appointments and compliance. With our mandatory 3-day compliance, It's a question on our data quality statement, such as mandatory Department of Defense, our data quality management control program. Question 2A, it asks us, in accordance with legal medical coding practices, have all the following occurred? What percentage of outpatient encounters, other than APVs, have been coded within 3 business days of the encounters? So our APVs are those B members clinics that end in 5. Anything else is our outpatient clinics. That's a trick question that we have to answer sometimes. Okay? So documentation must be completed and signed within 3 business days of the encounter for all appointments captured in our B members clinics, minus the APVs, right? If the documentation is not completed and not signed, it cannot be coded and we're not in compliance, right? Okay? So IRIS, it is our integrated resource and incentive system. We don't have IS no more, which is the incentive system. So now we have just the integrated resourcing. Our comprehensive ambulatory professional encounter record and timeliness. It is determined each month specific to that month's capers. So capers are our outpatient data. Sitters are our inpatient data. MTS will be given 30 calendar days to complete coding of ambulatory records, our caper submission, and to populate the caper data in the PASBA caper database. Well, it's no longer PASBA. So MedCom and DHA standard for this metric is 100% timely submission within 30 days of the encounter utilizing the daily outpatient workload, detailed report records ratio. So our ADM in compliance, it will be run by clinic coders at least weekly and given to providers and clinic POCs, chiefs, and appointment officers. All encounters that have not been closed within 20 calendar days will be researched before they are closed out or canceled by the facility. If there is no documentation to support an encounter ever took place, it will be canceled on the end-of-day processing. Our MECRS codes. Okay, so our 4-letter codes, they identify the service or the clinic performing the work. Our A MECRS codes, like we previously talked about, are inpatient. Our EKA codes, so our codes that begin in E, are inpatient rounds. Our B that does not end in 5 is our outpatient workload, and our B clinics that end in 5 are our ambulatory procedure visits. Okay, so this is the clerk menu that you'll see when you're running your end of day report processing and editing. So you have EOD here. You have your unscheduled visits, your walk-ins, change the walk-in criteria. So you select your criteria, your patient, clinic, provider, appointment type, and enter the criteria information. This is what you'll see for walk-ins. Walk-in patient continue. End of day processing. So when you're looking at your end of day processing, you can see at the far end if you have any pending statuses that still be changed. All right. So all our appointments have to have that status. They have to be changed from pending to kept, walk-in, sick call, whatever status it is, or whether they're a no-show. Does anybody know what kept means? So they were actually here, right? Okay, next. All right, so at the end of the day, everything on this page has a status. It is no longer pending. That's our goal with the end of day process. So, benefits of the program, of the Data Quality Management Control Program. We have the availability of our records to provide communications and the link between providers and the continuity of care. Correct data provides empirical evidence because everybody likes statistics and data. They like looking at what the data shows. It does not matter at the end of the day what work we tell somebody we did or what work was performed if it is not in the system. Everybody looks at the statistics, the data pulled from M2. So if you put garbage in, you get garbage out, right? And if you don't put it in, you don't get nothing at all. So that correct data supports our budget reimbursement billing. And like I was telling you yesterday, it allows us to continue to keep our service lines for our beneficiaries here at the hospital. It correct data supports training and education. It facilitates the quality assurance process and legal defense for providers and the military health system. Okay. Does everybody understand the data quality management control program? Any questions? Okay. So these are some of the resources that we utilize for the data quality management control program. If you ever need to reference something, you can definitely take a look at this, and it's located right in your packet.
Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Eileen Cooney, the supervisor at the referral center. And I have Erica Vascones with me and another referral manager. And we're going to start going over referrals today. We're going to go through a few processes. I like questions as I go. I think it makes it less confusing, so feel free to interrupt with questions. So the purpose of this is a brief explanation of the Referral Management Center. We find that a lot of people don't really realize what we do. So we'll go over that. We'll present an overview of the referral process. Why do we generate a referral? Why are some referrals appointed to Keller? Some referrals sent out to the network. We're also going to go over some referral dispositions in CHCS and their meetings, which can be very helpful when you're looking at a referral for a patient. If you know the meanings and the abbreviations for why we sent a referral out, it can help you explain to a patient why their referral is sitting where it is. We're going to briefly go over a right of first refusal, often referred to as a ROFR, and also a brief overview of our VA share agreement referrals. And this is our agenda. Good. So what does the Referral Management Center do? We provide referral assistance for all beneficiaries receiving care at the MTF. There is not a referral that's entered into the system that the referral center does not touch in some way, shape, or form. Our essential priority is to be financial stewards of the MTF's operating budget by optimizing care and containing TRICARE prime care within the MTF. So we are always trying to keep patients here at Keller. We try as best we can to not send them out to the network. And then our primary responsibility is processing referrals to the civilian sector, and we'll get into that in another slide. We also handle referrals coming in from out-of-area MTS VAs and from civilian providers in the area. So this is the referral process, the life of a referral. A referral is a cycle. It has a start, it has a close. So what happens is you go to see your provider, and your provider thinks you need to see a general surgeon. So they enter a referral for general surgery. So what happens is that referral populates in the general surgery queue in CHCS, and I know a lot of you are familiar with that. Referral management is dispositioning all those referrals right now. So the person that's reviewing the queues is going to see that general surgery referral populate in that queue. So we have guidelines from every clinic that tells us what we can and can't accept here at Keller, what we can treat, what we can't treat. So we have that list of guidelines, and the referral clerk that's reviewing goes by the guidelines, and she'll say, that's where the decision is made. Yes, we can see the patient here. No, we can't. If we see the patient here, the referral is reviewed within 24 hours. We appoint it to Keller, and two scenarios happen. The patient's going to call and schedule their appointment. That's what we're hoping for. They'll have referral reminder calls. They're now getting text to schedule specialty appointments. So our hope is that they do schedule the appointment. And once they do, they come in for their appointment. The provider enters the Alta note. And that referral is now open for 365 days for the year. So with that, we won't need a new referral. So if someone needs additional appointments, we can add those. It's good for 365, and then CHCS closes that referral. On the off chance that the patient does not schedule their appointment, that referral is no longer good at 90 days. So we close the referral. So we close the referral and we notify the ordering provider via TCON that that referral was never used and closed. So that would be the side of the house when the referral is appointed. So if we go back to deciding, is the specialty at Keller and can we accommodate the patient, and we say no, we can't do that, that referral is going to go to Humana for a network referral. They're going to see a civilian provider. So what they do is, it's still populated in the general surgery queue, but now it's going to populate in the referral center queue, and that's what we're monitoring the most all day long. So we have certain criteria we have to look at before we can send the referral out to make sure that we have all the information we need on that referral. We look at benefits, we look at enrollment. We look to see if it needs a specialty review, might it need a third level? Did they request a certain provider? Is he network? Is he non-network? All these things are going on while we're processing that referral. If we don't have all this information, the referral stops and we contact the ordering provider and we ask the questions we need so that we can send this out successfully to Humana. So we hope that the provider answers us and we get additional information on the referral. We fix the referral. We process it through CHCS. It populates in a software program called Referral Management Suite, which is an electronic fax. It goes to Humana and Humana authorizes the referral. They assign to a network provider, and within 72 hours, the patient can get on humanamilitary.com and see who they were assigned to, and they can schedule their appointment. Again, we hope they will schedule their appointment. On the off chance that they don't schedule their appointment, we will close that appointment in CHCS after 180 days, and again, we notify the ordering provider with the TCON. That is always our last step, is the ordering provider, because he's the one that's in, or she is the one that's in charge of the patient's care. So it's most important for them to know what's going on. So if the patient never uses a referral, that ordering provider may want to contact them, ask them why, maybe their issue resolved on its own, but that's where it always lands. So that would be there. But if the patient does, as we hope, keep their appointment in the network, the patient, if they do, a claim will hit the Humana portal. Yes, a claim will hit, which we deal with in HBAs. Once we see that claim in the Humana portal, the other side of our job is to get those consult notes back from the network provider, because without it, the patient's record isn't complete. The doctors need all of that with them. So we start chasing, we call it chasing consult notes from the providers as soon as we see the claim hit. So we will contact the provider. We usually contact 3 to 4 times over a period of days, asking them to send us the consult note. If we receive the consult note, what we do is we upload that consult note into Hames and Alta, whereas we're all, I'm sure you've seen them, where we have all network results. And we notify the ordering provider with a TCON that they can go in and review that consult note in Hames so they know it's there. That's our requirement. If we get follow-up notes on that, we also will upload them, and we do let the provider know that we have additional follow-up notes so that they, again, are, up current on their patient's care. Once that TCON is done, that stops our process. As far as that goes, I did want to mention that once the authorization is issued, it's usually good for a year, and this is a big point of confusion. Once the authorization's there, or the referral at Keller, and the patient has used it, that's good for a year. So when patients and providers, outside providers, are calling us and saying, we need a new referral, they need visits added to those referrals. And that seems to cause a lot of confusion. So,
That same off number?
yeah, with the same auth number, and if you're uncertain if it's still a valid authorization, call the referral center and we'll tell you.
Yeah.
But we find that that's a big area where people get confused. So the authorization is what it is for that year. And
We do have a few exceptions, physical therapy, speech therapy, sometimes in 3 months, 6 months, but the majority are good for a year.
yeah. So, and again, that's why, just if you call us and ask us, we can look it up, we can let you know, so we can save everybody a lot of work that doesn't need to be done, just give us a call. But we get a lot of phone calls for that. The other one is, if a patient's diagnosis changes. So we start out with one diagnosis and they go to neurology and it's in different diagnoses and they're telling you that Humana is saying they need a new referral, they need a new referral. So anytime a diagnosis changes, even if it's an outside doctor that's saying that it's a different diagnosis, they're gonna come to the front desk or call and they're gonna say, we need a new diagnosis, a new authorization, they actually do. So that's the other side of the house.
So the network provider can't refer a patient to another specialist, they have to refer them back to the PCM for a new referral, if it's a new diagnosis?
We get from Humana all the time, our information sheets, we have faxing all day. It used to be that way, but we're finding it's not. We're finding that they're coming back to Keller for everything. So, it used to be for, I think, active duty only, but now we find it happening with all our beneficiaries. So, we have been putting in the requests for the new referrals. I don't know why it's changed, but it has. And so, it's just so upsetting for the patients. So if we have a better idea of what they need, maybe we can get the phone calls going in the right direction. Any referral issue, you can call us. We're happy to help. The ending of this is that sometimes there's two things. The patient can go see that network provider. We can see the claim. We know they've been seen, and we can request the consult, and we don't get it. So we actually have Humana try to help us collect the consult. But if we can't get it, we're gonna close that referral in 180 days. And we're gonna mark on there that we could not get the consult note. We're gonna send a TCON to the ordering provider to let him know there's a claim. You know, we think they've been seen, but they're not sending us what we need. And Humana deals with that side of the house. They're considered delinquent providers, and there also, of course, is if the patient disappointingly does not use their referral, and then at 180 days, we would close that too. And again, we notify the ordering provider that that referral was never utilized and the referral is closed. So anytime we close a referral, you know, it doesn't matter if the patient didn't use it and they come back to you and they say, but I had a referral. You did, but you didn't use it in the allowed time frame and it's expired, it's closed. And they would need at that time to get a new referral. So that's the life cycle of a referral. Questions, anyone? Yes?
Say if I have someone for 2015 came in for their knee and they were using it for that year and 2 years later, well, I was seen for that knee. Can I use that referral that I was already seen
Oh,
for?
no. That referral will be closed, go on.
I get that.
Yes. Also, you might have patients, telling you it's continuity. So if they want to stay maybe with the provider on the outside, but we're trying to get them back in and they say, continuity, I've been seeing this doctor forever. Continuity is 6 months to a year. If they have not seen that provider within 6 months to a year, it's not considered continuity. So it makes it very difficult for the patients sometimes, but that is what continuity is.
So on that one though, the only thing that we've noticed is that there's a lot of still open referrals past that 1 year mark because they have 99 visits and they stay open. They don't automatically close after that year if they still have open available appointments to be scheduled on that referral.
CHCS should automatically close them,
Doesn't.
and it doesn't. You know what I would love? If I could
Doing
see, I wanna see that.
Yeah.
I can
We can
probably.
I wanna see that.
Oh, yeah.
Because even when we're running reports, because I run a report every day, because we have 24 hours to
Oh, yeah.
disposition referrals. So I'm running a report every day, looking for open referrals that are out in, you know, wherever they go. And I'm not seeing that, so I would love to see that. Because that could affect our metric.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, even if you could send me like a snippet
screenshot.
of
Oh, I can
names.
do a couple screenshots
Yeah,
for you.
please do. Oh, I would love that.
Because I know Barnstable, like, they were very particular about only putting so many visits per and allowing the clinic to extend it from there. But we're seeing a lot of referrals that come in with
'Cause they
automatic
put in
visits
for
of
99
Providers
days.
always put 99 days because they think they'll get it through like that. With
Oh, I
Humana.
love that,
Humana has an assigned number of days. Yeah.
because it could help our metric.
No,
Yes.
and
I
that's
love
that's
it.
why I'm
And we
asking.
can
Yes,
recognize
please.
it.
Because like
Yeah.
for her, that person would still show available. Like it would say that
Really?
referral is
Yeah.
still open
That's
and
why I
available for them to book.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So the-
That would kill our metric. Yes, please, that's a great point, thank you. So we're good here on the life of the referral? Okay. No, we're not done yet. Not done yet, almost done. Okay, wonderful. So, this is just a brief overview of review statuses, which you guys deal with all the time. So, reviewing, appointing, and otherwise dispositioning referrals consists of assigning a new review status to each referral through the AOP. And these are the ones that we use here at Keller. So again, if it says appoint to MTF, that means that the patient is gonna be seen here at Keller. That's really what that means. It just means that we have the capacity, the capability, it met the guidelines, so we're bringing the patient here. When you see the defer to network, you'll just know that that means that the patient's gonna see a network provider. That's simply what those two mean. It's the difference between keeping them in and keeping them out. And here's the continuity of care. So if a patient has continuity of care, we will send them out, but I just want you to know what the time frame for continuity of care actually is. And travel distance, we will send them out for often cadets home for medical leave of absence, or if they're home for the summer or if they're traveling, we'll do that. And second opinions we will send out for. So that's how I would remember this. Appointing means it's here, and deferring means they're out. And then the last two, if you see no appointment necessary, that means that referral was closed for whatever reason. It could be at the 90 days and we're closing it. They could have never used it and we're closing it. Some patients will call and tell us they don't want that referral, or that the doctor didn't really give them a referral. We've had that where they say we don't have a referral for that. So that's what that means. And then if you see info needed, that means that we're trying to get information, what we were talking about before, all the elements in the referral. Network providers, requests, benefits, all of that we're looking at. If we have to go back to the ordering provider for something, you'll see info needed, but you will never see this for more than 24 hours because we're moving them. So 24 hours or less. And that's the review statuses. And this is the other part that would help you identify why a referral was where it is. So these are in the review comments, these abbreviations. We never send a referral out without a review comment out to the network, never. It just won't happen. So if you see second opinion, you'll see the second in brackets. That means that we sent it out because the patient or the provider has asked for a second opinion. Bear in mind, source of contention sometimes. If a patient needs a second opinion, but we have more than one provider in that specialty clinic here, that second opinion is going to be with another provider here. So say it's ENT, Dr. Blakesley, he's all we have. So that one would go out to the network. But if it's orthopedics, they're going to see another orthopedic here. If it's gynecology, they're going to see another gynecologist here. And I know that patients often don't feel that that is a second opinion, but you could confidently give that answer because we will back that up every time. So if you see CB in brackets, it's capability, and it means that we couldn't accommodate the patient, the service, or the procedure requested, so we had to send out. CC is continuity, which we went over. CT means capacity, that's access. That means we were out of access and we sent them out. DS is distance. So if the patient lives greater than 60 minutes from here, we will often send them out closer to their home. Or again, if the cadet is home on medical leave of absence, that would be another example of distance. And then you have OHI, which is other health insurance or Medicare. And those are the only review comments we use. Okay, any questions on any of that? Okay, moving on, right of first refusals. I don't know if anyone's familiar at all. You might have heard the term as a ROFR. It's mostly referred to as a ROFR. Right of first refusal is the MTF's contractual right to be the first to offer specialty services to a beneficiary who is enrolled to a network non-MTF PCM. It is used to recapture care ordered by a civilian provider for an MTF enrolled beneficiary. So to explain that in a nutshell, say I live in Ellenville, I have a civilian PCM in Ellenville because I'm too far away from Keller. I go to that PCM and they say, you need to see an orthopedic provider. They put a referral into Humana, the civilian PCM puts the referral into Humana, and Humana is going to start looking at their guidelines because we have the right of first refusal because we have the specialty here. That's exactly what it means. So we want to bring the patients in, bring them in. So this is the criteria they're looking at, a referral from a civilian provider to a specialist or group. The beneficiary lives within 60 minutes to the MTF. And the service availability report, the SAR, indicates the MTF has the capability to provide the care. So this is something that Keller gives to Humana, and it's updated regularly, telling them all our capabilities. So when the Humana referral person is looking at this, once they've met this criteria, they say, okay, it's going to Keller because we have the right of first refusal. Next slide. So when it comes through, it populates in the Humana portal. Referral center looks at it, and we have to determine whether we're gonna bring the patient in, or can we do it? Are we gonna send them out? So once we make that decision, we would enter a referral into CHCS, and we indicate in the referral that it's a ROFR, so you would see it in the body of the referral. You would see that it was a ROFR, and we appoint to the correct specialty clinic here. If we decline it, Humana assigns the referral to a network provider, and when the patient logs into humanamilitary.com, they'll either be assigned to Keller, and it'll instruct them to call the appointment center at Keller to schedule their appointment, or they'll see that they're assigned to a network provider if we declined it, and they can call that network provider directly and schedule their appointment. But really what a ROFR is us trying to bring patients in. We also can recapture a patient. If a PCM here sends a patient out to general surgery, and the general surgeon says that patient needs an MRI, that's going to ROFR into us because we can do MRIs here. So then the patient would have their MRI here and bring their results back to the back to the provider. So that's two ways we try to bring people back in to Keller. So any questions on that? Yes.
So occasionally, we'll get phone calls up in primary care, and it'll be like a National Guard person or reservist, and they're seen here by ortho. They don't have a PCM here.
Yes.
So and they'll say, hey, I need an updated referral or whatnot. Can you just put in a TCON for a physician there in primary care for that to happen? And usually I'm like, I can bounce them over to you, but that's most likely a ROFR or possibly a ROFR or.
Well, they would, you're saying if they saw an orthopedist here, but they're not enrolled here.
Correct.
And then they want to see an orthopedist here or
No.
out there?
The orthopedist here is like, you need an updated referral, and they're trying to go through the primary care clinic to get that updated referral.
They have to contact the PCM.
The PCM.
Yeah, they would have to, whoever they're enrolled to or wherever they're coming from,
Okay.
that provider has to put that in for them.
Okay.
But
We
we have to
can-
call the appointment center to book an appointment to see a
Yeah.
primary care physician, and they will give
Yeah.
them the referral.
I tried explaining it to that to them, and they absolutely did not want an appointment. They wanted a TCON, and it was.
Well, that's actually, I don't think we have a policy on that. I think that would be up to the discretion of the
Correct. If the
ordering
doctor wants to
provider.
do the referral, go ahead and do the TCON, it's up to the
There-
discretion of the provider.
There might be a provider that would do that. I've seen providers do crazier things than that.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
Yeah, but if they're not assigned, they have to score up that.
Yeah.
Yes.
well, usually, yeah, if they have a civilian PCM,
They gotta
Yeah,
call them.
explain
We-
that.
if they have a civilian PCM, then we're sending them back to the civilian PCM. Yes.
Yeah,
If they're not enrolled here and they are showing a civilian PCM, our goal is to send them back to the civilian PCM to get the referral there. Yeah, that's,
Just sometimes we get some weird questions. We can bounce them to you guys, right, to kind of
oh,
sort out.
absolutely. That's what we do.
Always.
That's why we're there. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Some of it can get very complicated.
I just have a question. If patient then we referred out, right, to a provider outside, but that provider wants an MRI, like you said, they can do it. Now the question is, patients come back to me and say, I need a referral for the MRI, okay? Well, then I get, provided they need an MRI, well, I wasn't the doctor who was treating them.
Yes.
I am not the doctor who's
Right.
treating them. The outside provider should be putting in that request for
Whoever
MRI.
wants it is the person that should be ordering it.
Right, so we
So
would,
think of it this way, if I see my PCM and I need to see a general surgeon, and I go see that general surgeon, and that general surgeon says, you need surgery, who do you think should put that referral in? The general surgeon, because my PCM has no idea what they're doing or what they want or what I need. So it's kind of almost like a logical, you know what I mean? It's hard when they're telling you one thing, but
I think what she's saying though
Yes.
is when they see the provider on the outside, they're
Yeah.
immediately calling over to ortho and saying, now I just need that referral for the MRI, not
Yeah.
realizing that civilian provider is probably the one that's putting
they're
it in.
requesting.
right.
Because we
So
referred
you
them out.
tell
We
them-
referred them out. So then that
Is it just one of
provider
those where she
outside
can
wants
say,
an MRI now, 'cause
Yeah.
they're seeing them. So
Well-
they call us up.
It can get a little tricky, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
Active duty needs a referral for everything they do.
right.
Everything. So we constantly get requests from Humana for things like MRIs, CT scans for active duty only, but family members don't. So it can get a little complicated because say in the case of a general surgeon, if I'm out with the general surgeon or I'm here, wherever I am, active duty, I need a referral. It's gotta come from somewhere. A lot of the providers here will enter those for them and sometimes it's requested of them. But if I'm a family member, I am out there doing my thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So the
but-
family member, it's gonna come from the outside doctor.
Right, but that's not the problem. The problem is, so then, okay, the orthopedic, they're going especially, back specialist, we don't have a spine, outside.
Outside.
But that doctor wants that MRI. That patient comes back, they need an MRI, and we could do it here, I need a
Is,
referral.
But
is the patient active duty or is the patient a family
Yes,
member?
active duty.
That's the difference.
Yes, that's the answer.
But, I go, so the doctor that referred them out, say, the doctor here that
Yes.
said we don't have it, they reviewed it,
They may have to put it in.
okay, that was it, because then they'll
Yes.
say, I wasn't the provider that's treating them, that's not my
And it
problem.
doesn't matter. If they're
Okay.
active
They can
duty,
put it in.
it does not matter.
They
They
can put
can
that
put
in.
it
They
in, yes.
absolutely can and
Yeah,
probably
so that was
should.
the fight, it's like, why, just put it in, simple.
But it's
However-
not the same for the family member. That's what I'm saying as the active duty
Right,
soldier. You know, the active duty soldier, they're trying to, they're trying to get their care, follow their care. It's very different, one against the other.
Right.
And again, you can always call us.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
That specific scenario that you described, when we started under the latest TRICARE contract, was probably one of the primary issues that our providers had here at this MTF. Because they said, we're not following and treating these patients, these active duty patients, but yet they're coming back to us for referrals, the things that the specialist on the outside wants done. And we looked into it, that is how the contract is written.
Does that outside provider need to provide some sort of recommendation?
Where would they send their
The
referrals?
provider
They
here
do a
can
request
request
via
a
email.
consult note. The providers here
Portal.
can request consult
Or they can
notes
send a fax.
if they're
There
not
is-
comfortable.
There are certain things, it's in the contract, so if they're referred to a certain specialist, there's only, and it's written out, what then subspecialist that specialist can refer an
Yes.
active duty soldier to without having to come back to somebody at the MTF. But it's very
But it doesn't.
limited.
Do we have anybody from the radiology department here?
No, that would be
Okay.
perfect.
If I'm not mistaken, if the patient has a prescription, we're not talking an authorization.
You're right.
If they actually have a
It's the
physical
written
prescription, a
prescription, they
written
can take it
prescription,
in.
they can fax it or they can take it to the radiology department and book their appointment. So
I
you can
think
tell
any
your
POS
patient,
can do
do
that.
you have a prescription, active duty or family member? Go ahead and call radiology or
Yeah.
go ahead and go.
Yeah, so
and
then
make an
that's
appointment.
good, because then worse comes to worse, if they say no,
Correct.
then the patient go to that doctor, get a prescription,
Yes,
and
call
go,
your doctor, just get a prescription.
fantastic.
But I
my
just think the
God.
biggest
But it
difference
shouldn't go-
that's
it could be
confusing
that way.
people
It
is
should go-
active duty as opposed to family members. Active duty needs.
Yes.
Their needs are met here as often as it's asked of us, where family members don't have to do all that. Does that answer?
No, yes, there's a lot of loopholes and you know what I'm saying.
There is a lot of
Like-
loopholes, yes. Referrals are not a straight line.
No.
Ever.
In that case with the active duty service member coming in for the MRI, couldn't you use that as leverage though, to go back to that network ortho doc and say, send us a note?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When we get a
We
request,
do.
we call them. We need
Yeah.
a prescription for the
Yeah.
patient.
Can the front desk staff be aware, tell the patient, oh, you need an MRI, well, if you can bring the note in, we'll have the doctor put the order.
They could, but the problem, what I would be most concerned about with that, like I would, you could always give it a try, but I would never want the patient not to be seen because we're waiting for the note, where there could be a misconception, because it can get very confusing, but yes, you could always ask for a consult note. We love consult notes because the more we get, the less we have to chase, so. And the better for the patient's medical records. So that's ROFRs? Good? Okay. Lastly, we're gonna go over the VA referral process. So we have a VA share agreement where, it specifically states it's a contract. We send people to the VA for certain specialties and we accept people from the VA for certain specialties here. And all of that, what we can accept, what we can send out to them is in this VA share agreement contract. So really we're gonna concentrate on when they're coming in. So the VA faxes us their referrals of people they want to be seen here with tons of notes, tons. We of course have guidelines that those referrals have to meet. So we will review the guidelines, we'll make sure it meets all the criteria we need, and then we're gonna go ahead and put it in the system here so the patient can be seen. So if the patient is not registered in CHCS, and they usually aren't, the referral center registers the patient using the VA patient category of K61, which is important for anyone at the front desk that's gonna be checking people in. Because what we found was, we entered the referral and front desk clerks were telling us that they couldn't tell if it was a VA share agreement or not. They couldn't see it in Alta when they were checking in the person. So what we're doing now is we're putting K61 in the diagnosis. So when we enter a referral, we use CHCS. So when we're entering this, we use K61 right before the diagnosis. So when you pull up the patient, because we did it, when you pull up the patient in Alta, the diagnosis is there for that referral and you'll see K61. And that's your indicator that that person is from the VA and they're coming in on the VA share agreement. So the other important thing to remember here is the patient can only be seen for the diagnosis indicated in the referral. It is so specific, this contract, that we'll see certain diagnoses in one specialty and not a whole bunch of other ones. So make sure that when they're coming in, they're only coming in for that diagnosis. Now they can, they can see the provider here, and the provider here, same thing, they could give them a new diagnosis, or they could say they want them to go out somewhere else. We don't do any of that. What we do is we contact our contacts at the VA. We send them the consult notes and we say, this is what our provider thinks needs to happen with your patient, and their referral people take care of it on their end. So really, all we do is monitor that referral. We contact the VA when the referral's in and can be booked on. We contact the VA when it's booked on. If it's a cancel or no show, we contact our contacts at the VA. And then at the end, when hopefully the patient keeps their appointment, we send the consult notes from that encounter over to the VA, and then our end of that is done. And then the referral remains open. If they don't use it, it closes at 90 days with a review comment of no appointment required. And that's pretty much the gist of it. But the biggest thing is that I wanted you to know that this is that this case 61 indicates that that's a VA patient, because you are going just for what's in that referral, and it's important that they only come for that. So that would be the VA referral process.
Just one other piece of information to provide you in reference to the last presentation on referrals. The contact number for the referral center is 938-5373. That's their main number in case you have any questions that come up in regards to referrals.
Say it again, please.
It's
5373.
5373, correct. All right, so this afternoon, we're gonna move through a couple different courses. On your handouts, you'll have more slides, more information that I'm actually gonna cover this afternoon. Due to the fact, if you wanna go ahead and come in, or in the back, either one, whatever you're comfortable. So we're gonna cover the curriculum that we had planned. We're gonna pick up on TRICARE from this morning and do all these topics that we had planned. We just won't go into things that were redundant. There were some things we were gonna touch on the second time. But you have additional information in your handouts. So we're gonna talk a little bit about some front desk procedures this afternoon. Here's the purpose of this course. So I'm just really going to highlight this part for you because it's designed to familiarize staff on common front desk procedures and just general knowledge for use throughout the MTF clinics. However, the course does not cover clinic-specific front desk procedures. So each clinic will have certain things that they do in their particular clinic. You need to talk to your supervisors, or supervisors will give you guidance on what those are. I'm just going to touch on some general information about what should be done across the board, across clinics. Some of those topics we've already talked about, and I'm not going to talk about them again here for the sake of time. For example, end of day. We've talked about that a couple times. Across the MTF, everybody should now know end of day should be done in all clinics. The patient appointment check-in process. So, have you all seen these cards in your clinics, or do you have one that's attached to your computer? All right. So this was created during the summer, and it was given to MSAs at front desk throughout the facility. If you were not in receipt of one, or you weren't here when they were handed out, you now have one because it is in your folder. This was created because it was identified that there was some discrepancy or inconsistency in front desk procedures at front desk across the MTF. So it just basically serves as a checklist as you're checking in patients to help there be consistency of what needs to be done in that process. So as you can see, greet the patient, we've talked about that. Check military issued identification. Verify with the patient the time for appointment. Because sometimes we have patients that arrive and think their appointment is at 8, but their appointments are actually at 8:30, right? Check the patient's address and phone number. Verify that with them. And update if needed. Even if you saw the patient last week, you still want to make sure you check that every time, or just confirm with them, have there been any changes? Because if there's, for example, a lab that's drawn as a result of this visit, and it's something that the provider needs to discuss with the patient, and they changed phone numbers for their cell phone last week, that information needs to be updated so the provider can reach them with their new test results. Conduct a DEER's eligibility check to make sure that they're eligible for care in the facility. Verify the third-party insurance information is up to date. Check in the patient for the appointment in Alta. And inform the patient if they are not seen within the 15 minutes of their scheduled appointment time to, please don't just sit there, come back and let me know so I can check for you. And of course, as an MSA, you guys have already indicated that that's part of what you do at the front desk is you keep an eye on your waiting rooms for patients who may be sitting there for a long time so you can communicate with them and check on what's going on to keep them up to date, which is great. Any questions on this? All right. And on the back of the card, it gives detailed instructions of how to check on that 2569 information too. Couple other little things. This one we did touch on. I think you guys also touched on it during clinical systems training. We talked about the ORM, searching for appointments if you're not actively trying to book a patient that way. You can use option 2 under ORM to look at clinic schedule summaries, or number 9 to look at individual provider schedule summaries. This is one we find that is not done consistently across clinics. Clinics should be printing their clinic schedules the night before, the day prior, for the next day's appointments. I know this doesn't happen consistently because we've had clinics that call us when CHCS and Alter are down at the appointment center and say, can you tell us what patients are coming in when? Well, we use the same systems you do, but you at the clinics are supposed to be printing your clinic schedules the day before. So if that very thing happens, CHCS and Alter down, you know who your patients are that are coming in. Or say if a provider called out sick that day and you're gonna have to reschedule them for another time, you have their contact information. You know who was supposed to come in so you can reach out to them and still perform those functions. I will tell you, this is gonna become more and more important because all our computer systems are gonna start transitioning under DHA. And that can cause some issues, is my understanding. So we may run into more situations where maybe you unexpectedly are Alta and CHCS are not available. So please make sure you're consistently printing your schedules in your clinics. Other just little things to mention to you, how to book appointments for non-enrollees and not enrolled elsewhere patients, because we get these, right? So maybe it's a patient that is not enrolled to our MTF. Maybe you're a specialty clinic and it's a TRICARE Select patient that's decided to come in with a script to get some kind of service, see general surgery, for example. Or they're enrolled elsewhere. Maybe they're a soldier that's TDY from Fort Bragg up here, but they're coming to get services. So you'll find that those patients are not registered in our CHCS. How do you get them registered? Well, that's where on the second floor, admissions and dispositions, they're part of the patient administration division. They can assist with that. The office up there for A&D, patient administration, if you ever have a question about eligibility, if a patient's eligible for care, they're the ones that hold that function in the hospital to make eligibility determinations and assist you with those questions. Just another thing to touch on that we see sometimes, during the summer we have a lot of families, those rotator instructors that PCS in to West Point. When they arrive, they're TRICARE Prime patients and they may want to be seen, but you might find that they're now here, but they're not enrolled here and they don't have a PCM here. So what they need to do, yes, they gotta go to A&D and get registered in the system, but you also need to educate them that they need to call Humana and have their enrollment changed to our MTF and get assigned a PCM because they're going to start receiving their care here. Again, if you ever have any doubt about a patient's eligibility for care, please reach out to the patient administration division.
But when they go to PAD, they would also let them know that they would have to book Humana after their So if they came up to the front desk and I'm like, oh, I can't find you, whatever, and I send you upstairs to the second floor, they would also let them know.
I
If by
will,
chance I forgot,
I
and
will,
didn't tell them.
I will confirm that they have
Oh,
that
okay.
information.
Okay.
It's a good point. I don't make assumptions, I will confirm. And thank you for that point. It's a great thing to confirm. So general knowledge, I'm not gonna go into the general knowledge information. You have it in your slides. It provides some information in regards to some of your handouts that are in your packets. If we have new employees, sometimes they're not familiar with customs and courtesies in the military as far as if it's an officer, would you call them sir or ma'am, versus if it's an NCO, do you address them as sergeant? This was one of the things that one of the MSA consultants in the working group recommended be in the packet, that type of information. You may not need that information yourself, but I just encourage you to hold on to it because you might run into a new employee that's never worked in a military environment, and you could share those documents with them. They might find them helpful. All right, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and transition and provide you some information in regards to TRICARE. TRICARE and health insurance and the health insurance plan, this topic is rather complex topic. I think it's important for you to have an understanding and an overview of TRICARE and the different programs. I'm going to give you that base overview, but I'm not going to get into a lot of details such as cost and a lot of the really in-depth terms that can be associated with TRICARE. It's going to be a basic overview. I have provided in your folders some information on TRICARE for you to read. I encourage you to read that. It provides a lot of detailed information. If you do have questions in regards to cost, or you want to know more, I will show you some references, but also Mr. Kofi, our health benefits advisor, we're going to talk about him and what he does. And he is an expert in these topics, so he can always assist you, and he's here also to assist patients in that regard. I just ask as we go into this block of instruction, I know several of us in here are not only staff members, but we are also patients. If you have personal questions about your health insurance options, I just ask that you refrain from asking those questions during the block of instruction. Again, Mr. Kofi is here to assist patients, so if you want to discuss your personal insurance options, just ask that you come and see him during his office hours. So this is the purpose of this block of instruction. This is the agenda. So what is TRICARE? It's the Uniformed Services Healthcare Program, and it's a worldwide network that's comprised of military treatment facilities as well as civilian network providers and facilities. TRICARE has 2 regions. What happens is the military, or the uniformed services rather, they come up with a contract of what healthcare services they want provided to their beneficiaries. They put that contract out for bid. And health insurance companies bid on those contracts. HealthNet Federal Services is the contract provider for the West region right now. And Humana Military is the TRICARE contract provider, managed care support contractor, the terms are used interchangeably, for the East region. And of course, we fall within the East region, and that's why you hear Humana a lot. So the 2 main insurance programs that you hear a lot about are TRICARE Prime and TRICARE Select. A fair majority of your patients will be within one of these 2 plans. So we're going to talk a bit more in depth about those. It used to be that if you were a TRICARE Prime patient, not active duty, and you wanted to change to TRICARE Select, you could do it any time of the year you wanted to. Or if you change to TRICARE Select, and you're like, I really liked being TRICARE Prime, you could switch back any time of the year you wanted to. Under the current contract, when they came out with that, that changed. So there's only 2 times that a beneficiary can change their insurance plan. One is during the annual open season. During open season, they can elect to change their TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Select health plans. Open season occurs this year from November 11th to December 9th. It's not a very long window. If a patient elects to change, for example, from TRICARE Prime to TRICARE Select, during that open season, the change takes effect as of 1 January in 2020. If you have more questions or want more information about how open season works, there's a website given here at the bottom. The other time that a patient can change their healthcare plan is if they have a qualifying life event. So it's a certain event, and we'll talk about some examples of those, that would occur during your life that would then make you eligible to change your healthcare or health plan option. If you have a qualifying life event, you then have 90 days to make that change. After the 90 days has occurred, you have to wait until open season if you want to make a change, or if you happen to have another qualifying life event. If in your family, one family member has a qualifying life event, it makes all the other family members eligible to also change their health plans. So examples of qualifying life events, for example, you get married, you get divorced, you're moving, you have a baby, you adopt a child, or maybe you're a service member that's retiring. There are others, and there's more information on qualifying life events at the website that's given below. So what are the differences or the similarities between these 2 programs? For TRICARE Prime, it's a health maintenance organization style plan, an HMO. For TRICARE Select, it's a preferred provider plan, or a PPO. On TRICARE Prime, you get most of the care from a primary care manager. TRICARE Select, you can choose a TRICARE authorized provider. I'm not going to get into great depth of what a TRICARE authorized provider is, but again, I will provide you a website if you want to learn more. There's more information in your handouts, and Mr. Kofi is also available to you. For TRICARE Prime, referrals for specialty care are required. For TRICARE Select, referrals are not required for most services. For Prime, prior authorization for some services required, and the same is the case for TRICARE Select. For TRICARE Prime, you receive care from an established network of doctors and other healthcare professionals. TRICARE Select, from any provider, but pay a higher out-of-pocket cost when you receive care outside the established network of providers. Under Prime, no deductible applies, but co-payments do apply for beneficiaries except for active duty service members. Under TRICARE Select, deductible and co-payments apply for both. So if you're an active duty service member, you're automatically enrolled in TRICARE Prime, and you have to stay TRICARE Prime unless, for example, you're away from an MTF, in which case you may be eligible for TRICARE Prime Remote. Still TRICARE Prime, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So TRICARE Prime, the PCM directs all the care. Under TRICARE Prime, primary care is provided. Referrals are entered for specialty care. No referrals are required for emergency care. And only active duty require referrals for urgent care. Patients must have a referral and authorization for non-emergent or civilian specialty care. So if a TRICARE Prime patient wants to for example, go see a general who is enrolled here at the facility, wants to go see a general surgeon out in the civilian sector and decides on their own to go make themselves an appointment without a referral and authorization to see a general surgeon. No referral, no authorization, that's where they would have to pay. Because they're not following the rules of their health insurance. They can elect to do this and pay, and we're going to talk about what that's called a little bit more. It's called point of service. So for our MTF, you're primarily going to see, as far as patients enrolled to us, TRICARE Prime and TRICARE Plus patients, and we're going to talk about that. That's what we're seeing right now in primary care. In our specialty clinics, you'll see all different types of TRICARE programs because we have space where we can see TRICARE Select, TRICARE for Life, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So what is TRICARE Plus? It's a local program per MTF. Not all MTFs have TRICARE Plus health plan insurance available. Our MTF happens to have that program. It's a commander's program. The command decides if they're going to offer that. The patients that normally fit this criteria are patients that are over 65, so they have Medicare. Once they have Medicare, they can go see any Medicare provider. But if an over 65 patient wants to be seen at our MTF and wants to have a PCM assigned to them at our MTF, the way they can do that is to request to enroll in TRICARE Plus. And we also see folks request to enroll in TRICARE Plus if they're a dependent family member. So if you have an active duty service member who has a dependent family member, like a mother, father, someone in that category, if they have those folks that they're caring for, they may be eligible for TRICARE Plus. So important to note, we do have a TRICARE Plus program here at Keller. We do have patients enrolled in our TRICARE Plus program. However, because of our current access to care issues in primary care, we are not enrolling new patients into our TRICARE Plus program right now. So we anticipate that once our access to care issues get resolved, with more providers coming in to fill our vacancies, that we'll be able to start doing that again. So remember we talked about earlier about access to care, and we were, not meeting access to care right now in primary care. We've started to put some things into place. There's things we're supposed to start looking at when we're having issues. This is an example of one of the things that we've done. Whoops. So TRICARE Prime Remote is for uniformed service members on orders for more than 30 days that live or work more than 50 miles or 1 hour's drive time from the military treatment facility. So that's what we had talked about. You might have an active duty service member who's in TRICARE Prime Remote. Those individuals are assigned a network PCM if one is available. And if it's not available, employees, they can choose from a TRICARE authorized provider. They have a PCM that's not here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious. I know in the past that TRICARE Prime Remote covered like the service member and the family members if you're like on recruiting detail or especially detail that's away from an MTF. Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Transitional Assistance Management Program, it's also called TAMP. It provides 180 days of premium-free transitional health benefits after TRICARE benefits end. It's available for uniformed service members and their families. So we do see that here sometimes. We'll have an active duty service member who, say, has retired. They have basically 180 days of TAMP coverage, transitional coverage, until they decide what they're going to do with their health insurance.
Is that treated as prime or as standard?
I mean select.
Select.
Oh.
Yes, please.
You can have both, either or, depends.
So whatever CHCS says.
No, you can be either TRICARE, right, TRICARE, remote, select or prime. I'm sorry, TAP. So you can do either select or prime, and it's gonna depend upon, really what DEER says. DEER, CHC is gonna pull from DEERs or from Alta.
So they elect what they want.
Right.
So there are many other TRICARE programs and health insurances. Like I said before, you have information on all of them in your folder. I'm not going to go through each of them due to time right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple slides here for the sake of time and just encourage you to look at those at your convenience. So health benefits advisors, experts that can help. So Mr. Kofi is very, very knowledgeable on TRICARE health insurance, as well as a variety of other topics. So one of his roles is to address TRICARE benefits questions and issues for staff members as well as for our patients, interpret TRICARE explanation of benefits or EOBs for patients. He's an expert in resolving medical claims issues. Patients will bring those issues to our health benefits advisor. He's the debt collection and assistance officer. So sometimes we have patients that receive bills, but they don't address them until they get a notification it's gone into debt collection. And then they'll come see Mr. Kofi and say, can you help me out? Can we look at this together and see if anything can be done? So we have 2 health benefits officer positions in our health benefits office. One right now is vacant, so Mr. Kofi is holding down the fort for us, and soon we'll have 2. The health benefits office is located on the 1st floor here in the All Good Clinic, right around the corner. It's the hallway by the desk here. And here's the phone number that's given. And of course, like I said, very knowledgeable and can help point folks in the right direction. So a couple common terms to go over with you. You hear this statement, that patient's enrolled to the MTF. What does that mean? That means they're a TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Plus patient that has been assigned a PCM at our MTF and receives their primary care at one of our primary care clinics within our MTF. What's a provider's empanelment? You may have heard that. Talk about a provider's panel or their empanelment. What that is, it applies to primary care only for our facility. It's when a primary care provider, it's their list of patients that is assigned to them as a PCM. Right? So patients are assigned a PCM for that provider. It's a list of all those patients that he or she has assigned as their PCM. What if you have a patient that wants to change their assigned PCM? Maybe they've seen their provider and they just don't feel like they're a good fit and they'd like to see another PCM. Patients have 2 options. They can contact Humana and request a PCM change, or they could go and visit Mr. Kofi, and that's something that he can assist them with. So, important to note, you may have 10 primary care providers that are PCMs down in the primary care clinic, but their panels or that list of patients has a limit. Because we wouldn't want one of our providers to have 5,000 patients that they're following and another only have 1,000. That wouldn't be very fair, and they probably couldn't do that. So their panels or their list of patients have a cap or a limit. So if a patient wants to change to a provider whose list is already full, we'd have to say, I'm sorry, their panel is full, you'll hear that term, but we have these other PCMs that have availability or still names on their potential list where they can be assigned. Any questions on any of that? What is space available or space A care? All right, we hear this term. So for our facility, it does not apply to TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Plus patients, That's one of the reasons patients enroll in TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Plus, is because they want to have a PCM here and they want to be seen here. And if they're enrolled in those programs, this is where they would get their care. This is where they would be seen. However, we have some patients that are TRICARE Select patients. They're not assigned a PCM here, but in the past, they've been coming here and seeing our primary care providers, right? Well, TRICARE Select, TRICARE for Life, other insurance programs all fall into that category. Maybe those patients have been coming here and seeing a PCM from time to time in our primary care because they like it here, but they haven't enrolled in TRICARE Prime or TRICARE Plus. Well, these patients down here are considered Space A patients or space available patients. If we have availability or extra supply and appointments, we can accommodate extra patients, ones that we're not required to see, ones that are not are enrolled to us. However, if we get in a situation where we don't have enough supply, then we can't continue to see those patients there, because maybe we're struggling to see even our enrolled patients, right? There are a few exceptions to this. So military, we have folks we have to see. So for example, if we have a reservist and they need a fit for duty, some kind of military readiness exam, we could potentially see that person because it's a must-see. So there are a couple little exceptions. And leadership decides whether we are going to be seeing Space A patients or not in primary care or in our other clinics for that matter. And it's based on availability. So currently, because of our access situations in primary care, we are not seeing space available patients. However, we anticipate when our access issues resolve, we may have the ability to start seeing them again. And also, we do currently have availability to see them in our specialty care clinics. So they are still being seen in our specialty care clinics if they want to be seen there. There is an exception. Right now, dermatology, our dermatology clinic is only open to active duty. It's active duty only right now, just in case you didn't know that information. So this is important contact information for TRICARE. This is the website I was telling you about where you can get additional information if you want to know more. Patient options. Do patients have a choice, or are they required to come and get their care at the MTI? Are patients required to come and get their care here?
Active duty, yes.
So all patients, except for active duty service members who are enrolled at an MTF, have choice to not get health care at Keller. Family members have choice. All the other patients have a choice. So I just encourage you to think about that a minute. In your clinic, on a weekly basis, how many patients do you see that are not active duty service members? Probably a fair amount, right? All those patients have the ability to make a choice to take their business somewhere else. So that's why when we talk about customer service and how valuable you all are, you guys are key to the team and key to our patient experience and in their choice to come back and receive their health care from us. You play an important part in keeping the patients coming back here. I can't emphasize that enough.